Shalom. So today we're going to talk about the Hebrew alphabet, right? And we're also going to talk about vowels. This requires us to get into the whole creation aspect of things, right? Because we are confused about how the creation process went, who was first or who was before. But if you think about it, he didn't create one nation of men today, another nation of men, and another few years, and so forth. When there was creation of birds, all the birds were created, right? When the creation of trees, all the trees were created. Over a process of time, guess what? This type of mango might be today, but a few years afterwards, guess what? It can change to something else, but it has the same ancestral history, right? So different types of species can come out of different things, but they have the same ancestral history, the pedigree, right? So for example, when you're dealing with the Adamites, right? After a few years, guess what? They were called Israelites, but it's the same ancestral history. So the people that came after the flood were the same people that were before the flood, regardless of what names they were called by, right? So when you go to like Genesis chapter 1 verse 21, it says, "And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good," right? So when he created all the whales here, there was not another creation for whales again. It says all the winged fowls, guess what? He didn't use another day to create winged fowls, right? So he said, "And every living creature that moveth." So mankind is part of every living creature that moveth, because the whale is a living creature that moves. So why would it be separated from every living creature that moveth? Or the winged fowl, why would it be separated? Why is there a comma to separate these things? So all these were created on the fifth day, right? They were separated on the sixth day. That's different. The Most High creates and he separates. So he creates light, he separates it from darkness. He creates the water, he separates it from the land, and so forth. But when we read the word waters, because we read in English, we're trying to perceive the ancient understanding in English. Then why would the winged fowls come out of water? It's going into elements. It's not just literal things here. So we have to understand from a deeper standpoint than what we're perceiving from the English or this Western way of perceiving things, right? So we can see that all the nations were created. But when you go down further to chapter 11, it says that, "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech." The entire earth was speaking one language, right? It was not named. Why? Everyone was using it. It's just like today, everyone is using what language? What is the first language of the world, or more like the universal language? English. But we have to name it because it came in a time where all the other languages existed before it. But when you go back then, when there was only one language, one way of communicating, you didn't need to say, okay, it's called Hebrew language. It's just the way everyone communicated and everyone understood each other. Right? Now, what happened further down was that this language was lost among the nations, but it was kept by one nation. So when you go to Iber, that's the root word. Ibari. Ibar is the root word, which is translated as Heber. Then he had a son that was born in the time where the earth was divided. It's not just to say an earthquake happened, because when you think of an earthquake, what does it do? It splits the earth in two. So there was a separation at the time. So you had the Hamitic tribes went this way, you had the Japhethites went this way. But the Shemitic people, most of them kept their tongue. That's why it's called of the past. We kept that language of the past. It's the same way when you're dealing with 500 years ago and slavery, right? Most of the people that came out of slavery, that when they got freedom, they carried on with the English language and so forth and everything, or the idea that you are just a Negro. You did not really get to travel with your real identity. But a few of the slaves kept their identity. They knew who they were. So you had a remnant of them that was passing on that message that, hey, we are the Israelites. We are these people. This is what happened to us. But then majority of the people, they took on to the American way of life. Of course, the Christian churches and so forth. So then they've known themselves as bywords. The Most High always leave a remnant, right? Now, after the Tower of Babel, after the confounding of the language, right, and different people went different places and they started to speak differently. So what would happen to the descendants of Eber that went in the region of where Egypt was, or Egypt is? They would take on that confounded language. So they would have a what? New dialect. What about the ones that went over towards the south, like in Arabia region, where you have the Yemenites and the people of Sheba and Ethiopia and so forth? They would take on a different dialect, right? So all these ancient languages, they are very similar, because what? They had consonants. They didn't really use vowels. But you will see something particular about the Hebrew language, right? You had other ancient languages like the Sanskrit, the Egyptian language, the Canaanite language, the Aramaic, which is like a sister language to the Hebrew. They're very similar in their hieroglyphs and so forth, in their meanings and their way of communicating or expressing something. But you will see that the Hebrew has something prominent in it that does not change. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at these characters, and we will see why all the other languages came from this. The Canaanites, the Egyptian language, the Aramaic, everything came out of this, because the world was of one language. Everything derived from it. And then afterwards in history, you'll find that when the Greeks, they came to power, because they also had a spoken language. But when they started taking like the Phoenician scripts and so forth, the Egyptian scrolls and so forth, guess what? That's when they start to like the idea of the vowels, and they start to put it in and so forth. But prior to that, they did not really have a written language with consonants and vowels. And this is why when you look at the Greek language, the French, the English, and so forth, what you will notice is that English, the culture that comes with English language, it is still not really the same as the Greek language. So even when people are reading the New Testament, there's still a problem, because the ancient Greek language came directly from the ancient Phoenician and Egyptians and so forth. So it had a closer connection to the concept of the Hebrew language. Whereas in these modern languages that came from the Greek language, they lost things through a process of time. As the book of Ecclesiasticus says, that things translated to another language, it loses its meaning. So, for example, when you think of the word Creole, Creole from the culture of Greek, what Christian means today in this English culture is not the same as what Creole meant in the ancient Greek culture, because the ancient Greek culture, Creole, was closer related to the Hebrew at that time. So when it comes to Creole, you're dealing with the exact replica of something, or we would say rub off on someone, meaning you look exactly like the person, or you behave exactly like this person. That's our way of talking. In this English culture, when you hear the word Christian, it has nothing to do with you being an example of that person or being in the image of that person. So that is showing you that even the English language, when you're reading the New Testament, you're not reading it from the Greek perspective. You're still reading it from the English perspective. Because if you were reading from the ancient Greek standpoint, you would understand what it means to be a Christian, because that came directly from the Hebrew. Just as their vowels came directly from the ancient Phoenicians and so forth. So it had a closer connection to the ancient cultures. But then they started to give it to the Italians, the Romans, and these other languages. It loses its power. So now let's look at this and see what mysteries are there to be unfolded. Now, as you can see, there are 22 letters. So a lot of the letters that are in English language are not in here. Just as a lot of the letters that are in the English language are not in some of the other European languages. Just like you have letter U, V, W, X, and so forth. Those came later. They didn't really serve that great purpose. Right? So cultures come from where? Constellations. And this is why the Most High always say, do not worship the sun, the moon, and the stars. The other nations do that. Right? Because where would you get your message back then? When the gods spoke to the people, where is this coming from? It's coming from the constellations. You get inspiration through them. They'll let you know what to do, what not to do, when to go to war, when not to go to war. So usually when a nation is, our kingdom is going to war, you would have your what? Your priest, your sorcerer, your astrologer, and so forth. Whenever Israel was going to war, who had to be there? The Levites had to be there. So when the other nations were going to war, guess what? Their sorcerers and their astrologers and magicians, they had to be there. It's the same. Now, what was the difference with the Adamites from the other nations? When the other nations look to the constellations, they see something to worship. When Adam looked to the constellation, what did he see? He understood that someone was writing to him in the constellations. So he wasn't worshiping them. He wasn't worshiping the constellations, but he understood that someone was communicating with him. So When the scripture says that the Most High took all the animals to Adam and he should name them, and whatever he called them is what it is, right? So, which one came first, words or letters? It's just like asking what came first, the chicken or the egg. Well, if the Most High created life and not seeds, then the chicken would come before the egg. So it's the same. The word came before the letters. This is why you had spoken languages before you had written languages. So writing did not start with Egypt. The Sumerians, the Akkadians, those empires were before Egypt rose to power. Long before. So how can Egypt be the beginning of writings and so forth? All right. So look at this image, and as we can see, similarities with the different letters of the alphabet of the English language, right? When you look at this here, this is a A. That's the first letter of the Hebrew. And if you look at it closely, you can see like the image of two cows yoked together, right? It's like plowing the land, because that would be the strongest among the cattle. So this is why it's the first. It's the head, the strong. This, or it refers to as the strength when you're dealing with the characteristic of the cows. So it is the first, right? Now here you have the second letter which is the ba, right? And if you look closely, you'll see that it is like this, turned in a vertical position, right? What does this look like? Tent. That's what you were living in back then, tents, right? Tents, house is the same, but tent. Rather, so you can see here is a tent, and it represents like the family unit. So it's just like when he said, and he took a woman from his rib and closed up the flesh thereof. He closed that family unit. He closed it with one wife and two sons, right? That's the family unit of Adam. So this also represents the family are inside of something. The next one we have here is the ga. The gam is like a goad, right? That you use to steer your cattle. It's like when you're bringing in your goats or your whatever animals, and you have the goad to steer them, right? So this is the gam. Let's write them up here. Ba, ga. And this would be like the representation of a camel. Now here you have the fourth letter, which is da, and it means a door. So this is da, and it's door. It's like a door. As you can see, here would be the door of the tent. This area here is the same thing. The door. That's where you walk to go inside. This also has a spiritual representation of your consciousness, because you have to go within. You have to go through that door to get to that state of consciousness, to get to that throne room where you commune with the Most High. But just as you know, how the priests, they had to clean themselves properly before they can go in there, how dangerous it is, how risky it is, how many of them die just by invoking different spirits, lighting strange fires and so forth. That is how it is for us today. You cannot just appear before the Most High any and any ways. And a lot of people do this, especially when they take prayers for granted, they want to do it when they're naked in the shower. That's how they want to enter in the throne room. That's very disrespectful. Right? So we know who this door represents and who we have to go through, meaning what state of conscious we need to get to and how we need to get there, what we need to do. We keep the Most High commandment with a pure heart and we change our behaviors. All of these things is what they do what? They help us to go inside. So we don't need objects to do that. We don't need crystals with spirits injected in them. We don't need smoking, cocaine, shells, and all of these things. We do what? Meditate day and night. And His word, His consciousness. The next one is the Ha. And like I said earlier, the ancient Greeks, they took these from the Phoenician script and they make vowels, and this is how they change over time. So it would be, even in the modern Hebrew, it would be like hey, and after a while they took away this, and it has this A sound until it goes, you take away this, it has this E sounds, and it changes, and this is how things water down over a process of time, and this is where you get what is called vowels in these new languages. This gives a form of revelation, or means to behold or to manifest, and this also gives the essence of something. So when you're dealing with the attributes of the Most High, just like Abraham and Sarah, what was added to their names? It was Abraham. But then the Ha, as in YHWH, the Ha was added to his name, and the wife's name was Sarah. The Ha was added, so it was changed later. So when you're changing a name, it's not just to say, okay, like you're doing a deed poll to change a name. Your spiritual characteristics have to change with it. The function is now embedded in your spirit. So it gives you the essence of what you are. So a lot of us might say, oh, I'm not a Gentile, I'm not a Jamaican, and I'm not American, I'm not an African, I'm an Israelite. But you cannot change the title, and the spiritual characteristics don't change with it. So it's more than just calling yourself an Israelite because you are a descendant of the curse. You have to cross over. No, this is Wa, and what it is used for in this time was to do what? You have your tent, now you have to tie strings to fasten it to the ground. So it's like this, you tie your string around this. And this is what it means to secure or to fasten, to hold something firm, right? And this is also another character in the name of the Most High, the existing one. The next letter is the Za, and this is where the Zion comes from, and it's also used as an plowing instrument. It can also be used as an instrument of war, for weapon, right? Now, this letter is, let me put it up here, CHAA, Kha, as in Hamitic. So when we say Ham, as in the son of Noah, Ham, is not really Ham, but it's Ham. And that's the same word you get the Chem from, Chemitic, but it's not really Chem, it's Chem. Right? So as you can see in the diagram, it looks like It looks like this. Like a house, and you have different parts that are separated from different areas. Like your kitchen is separated from your bathroom is separated from your bedroom is separated. These are walls that separate, right? So this is this letter. Now the next one here we have is ta. And what it looks like is like it's about a container or a barrel that you use to store your grains in. As you know, when you harvest your crops and so forth, when it's time, cold time, right? You would store your foods until spring again, because you wouldn't be harvesting much in the winter. So you have crops that you store, right? So this would be like the inside of that container that you use to store. Now the next one is ya, right? And this looks like the hand. This looks like a hand, which signifies the right hand of the Most High. But it's also a thought, but it has to be manifested. It has to be like in an action form, doing. So the thought is here, and then you manifest it, you do the action. Right? So this is the letter Ya from the name of the Most High as well. Ka, as you can see here, Ka. And this is a representation of the palm. And over time, as you can see how it changes, it's first backwards, then it starts to turn around, then it goes to a straight form. And this is where you have the K sound in English, right? Represents the palm. And this is another thing that they taught us to pray this way with our palms closed. But how can you receive something with your palms closed? This is why you pray like this with an open palm, or like this in the position of receiving something, or with an extended arm like this. But open, not closed, right? So this is for this letter here. Now the next one here is La. And that's where you get the English L from. This one here is Ma. And it represents water. And you know, water can be in two ways. It can be smooth and calm, and it can be rough and strong. Chaotic, it can be used to destroy, and it can be used to make you clean. Right? The next letter is Na. This is a representation of life, like a seed, a fish, activity, motion, right? This letter here, Na. The next letter is Sa. It's like a support or like a thorn where, you know, it's like you have your flag, like a flagpole, and you tie your flags on it and you hook it there to support, right? The next one here is, this is where you get a letter that stands by itself. It's called I. Not as in the English letter I, but as in the pupil, the eye, right? So that's where you get like your I sound in words like Yahawashai. The next one here is P, Pa. And as you can see, an open mouth and A mouth is used to speak. So it's like talk or communicate and so forth. It's just like when you read in Revelation and talks about this dragon and his mouth, right? A mouth is used to speak, to talk, to communicate. And when you look at the media, what does it do? It communicates with people. It speaks a lot of lies to people. So now you can put pictures of the mouth of a dragon and get a revelation of an understanding, right? So the next letter is Taza. Let me put it down here. Taza. And it's like a side. Like when you lay on your side, you crouch on your side. Taza. The next letter is Ka. Q-A. This is where the English Q comes from. And as you can see, it's not very far. It's like a vertical pole and the circle there. Like the sunrise, the horizon, and so forth. The next letter is Ra. Head. Right? And you can look into this from a spiritual aspect where you can see that the man from the sole of the feet all the way up here would be a representation physically of us. But from here to here would be a spiritual representation of what? Of the Messiah. Of a different state of consciousness that is above our human perception, our lower nature. So the mind, the body, the intellect, those are parts of our lower nature. But here, the temple, the altar, is a higher state of consciousness. So this is what it means when he said the head of the man. Because we have to do what? Go to a higher state of consciousness. Otherwise, we'll be doing everything like beast in our human nature, animalistic nature. So when we take on this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and we change internally, the change happens inside. The next letter is Sha. Sha is a representation of a tooth, a fire, to consume, to destroy, and so forth, right? And the last letter is Fa. And as you can see, it doesn't change too much. So all it did was they just straightened it, and that's where you get the English T from. So the Fa is like to covenant, to sign, to mark, signature, and so forth, right? So these are the letters of the Hebrew language. Now, when you're dealing with vowels, what are the vowels? A, E, I, O, U. In the ancient languages, those weren't needed, right? So even when you go to like the Egyptians and so forth, the way their words were pronounced, it didn't need these different sounds to make proper meaning of the word. So it's the same with this. As you see the similarities with all the letters, they have a R sound at the end. You didn't have an A special for vowel, but that was how the ancient languages were. So let's try to make words out of these. So we're going to go into the aspect of the alphabet now. And the alphabet is the Alap, bayath. Let me write it here. Alap, bayath. That's the root word for these letters. A, Alap. Bayath, B. And that's where you get your Aleph or alphabet from. Alap, bayath. Now, the difference with the Hebrew language from all the other languages is that you don't need a dictionary, you don't need to look up the etymology of something to understand what it is. The meaning is defined in the word itself. The meaning is defined in the word itself. So, for example, what if you wanted to write father? We're going to look at it, the same word in 3 different languages. So now we have the one word father written in 3 different languages, right? Now, what does it mean when you say father? If you should look in the English language, like in a dictionary, what it says is a male parent, but it doesn't say much. It doesn't say much about that male parent. And this is why you can see in this English culture, it kind of makes sense when a woman says she is also the father, because it doesn't really have something concrete about it. But let's look at it from this standpoint. Let us look at it from the Hebraic standpoint. Remember what I said, the army, this is the word Abba, right? The army is strength. Strength, right? And remember we said Ba is a tent or a house. So you have strength. And in Hebrew, we read from right to left. So strength, house. So the strength of the house, the meaning is in itself. You don't need to go and search a dictionary to get this meaning. It is in itself. So the strength of the family would be the father. So in the Hebrew culture, it is impossible for a woman to say she is also the father. It doesn't exist. The thought process itself doesn't exist. But in the English language, that kind of makes sense because it's only a male parent. It doesn't say anything about the man, right? This is the Egyptian, right? It's from right to left because the man is facing that direction. So you read it from right to left, right? So you'll see that the Hebrew carries a more concrete meaning, right? So what if you should take this word ama? This is the Hebrew word for mother. Again, strong or strength. Ma is water. No, if you should look at this from English standpoint, strong water doesn't make any sense. But you go deeper, is that when you boil the skin of certain animals, you produce something called glue. What is the function of the glue? If you want this to stick to this, you put the glue between, and they stick together. So the function of the woman is not the strength of the family, but she is what binds the family together. This is why he said to Adam that you needed a support. Now this house is going to be built on your name, but you need a support system to bind that home together. Therefore, you need a wife. And that's the function of the wife. A lot of women, because they don't have this cultural thought process, they cannot come to the truth of themselves. It's the same way with a lot of men. They don't understand things from this standpoint that they are the strength of the family, so they cannot come to that state of consciousness. You have the media dictating to you, you have this one dictating to you, this institution dictating to you, this organization dictating to you. You don't know what you are. And even when they say, yes, I'm a Hebrew, you still haven't come to that state of consciousness of what your true function or purpose is. So yes, the purpose of the woman is to keep that support of binding the family together. Right? Let's take one more. What if we take this Hebrew letter Ba and this letter Na, and put them together? You get the word B-A-N. Well, you might be asking, why B-A-N if it should be Bana? Well, when there's a connector, it drops the last letter. And this is why a lot of people don't understand with the name Yahweh. They're wondering why the last H is here. Yes, because it's Yahweh. But with the connector being here, you drop the last A, and that's how you get Yahweh. So it's the same here. You use the connector for that purpose, right? So Ban is the word for son. What is the nature of the son? The son would be like a seed, right? That carries on the identity or the genealogy of the ancestors. So it's just like you have a mango tree. Guess what? It's going to keep falling off mangoes, and those mango seeds are going to turn into the mango plant and going to grow and keep reproducing. So it carries on the genealogy. It's very different for a woman because a woman does not carry on the seed. So for example, if your last name is James, right? So you have two children, one son, one daughter. Guess what? When your son has a child, the name of that child is still going to be James. But it's not only the name that he's bearing, but he's also bearing the what? The imprint of the genealogy. So this son, which is the grandson, would also bring forth another son, and it's still going to be both the name and the seed. When the daughter has a child, the child is going to carry the name of the father. So let's say the father's name is John. So guess what? John will not be of the seed of James. So what you're seeing is that your name and your identity are one and the same. So when you say you are Israelite, guess what? It's not just the name Israelite absent the spiritual characteristics or the function or the purpose. You cannot be saying you're an Israelite, but you're living like a Gentile. Right? Now, another thing that this society does with names is they translate it to a total different thing. You cannot do that. Right? Let's work with my name, Andrew. If I were to write this in the Hebrew language, guess what? I would have to take the equivalent of the letter and write it the same way. So my name would be A, Na, Da, Ra. We wouldn't have the E, so we would have to go to the Wa because we don't have a letter close to it. So this would be my name if you should translate each letter. But to take it from one thing and change it into an entire a total different thing, that is totally incorrect. This is why Paul in English can never be Pablo, because those are different letters, different pronunciations, different everything. Right? So whatever name you have, that's your name in every language. So if I have an English name called Andrew, if I go in the land of the Spanish, I am still Andrew. If I go in the land of the French, I am still Andrew. If I go in the land of the Hebrews, where they speak Hebrews, I am still Andrew. You cannot call me in your tongue and say that's my name. No, I'm not going to answer. My name is Andrew. So no, you cannot translate a personal name. You can translate a title. For example, car is a title. So this is car in English. In Italian, it might be macchina. And in other languages, it might be whatever it is. But Mercedes is a personal name. You cannot translate it to something else. Toyota is the actual name. You cannot translate it to something else. But the title cars, you can translate. No, the name of the Most High, right? As I said earlier, Yah, Ha, Wah. You can find the function of these letters throughout scriptures. The Yah represents the hand, the right arm, or the hand of the Most High. Yah. Ha means to reveal, to behold, to manifest, to look, and so forth. Wa means to secure, to fasten, to hold something together. And Ha again means to reveal or to our vision or so forth. So the name of the Most High, which means exist, to exist, or He be, because Yah at the beginning means He. Yah at the beginning means He, so He exists, He be. He is what He is. I am that I am. I am not defined by words. Everything, every word is already limited, and I am infinite, so I am that I am. You cannot limit me with words. There aren't enough words in the world to define what I am. So I am that I am. I exist, and that's it. Leave it there. Anything else is placing a limitation on the Most High. It's just like when you talk about yourself. I am. That is your essence. It's infinite. It's pure. But anything you attach to it is placed in a limitation. I am intelligent. I am smart. I am short. All of those are finite. All of those are limited. I am that I am. Nothing else added. You don't add to it. You don't subtract. I am. And that's the essence of what you are. Now we're going to look at one particular scripture. Matthew 27:46. It says, "And about the ninth hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani." So let's look at this. Eli, Eli, ma, sa, ba, tha, nine. What you're actually noticing is that the same pronunciation these letters have, because as you can see, this was written in Hebrew, the same pronunciation it has with the R sound, you can see similarities. You can identify a few of the Hebrew letters in this sentence, right? Now, this term here, Eli, let's put it here. It means my God. So the word El is the equivalent to, we say, Allah, right? No, this means God. God. No, what if you want to make it possessive? No, you want to say, my God. When you want to make it possessive, you add the letter Ya at the end. So this is where you get the Yad. So we say, Alaya, my God. So they say, Eli, my God. This is a different dialect, right? So now you have my God. So, for example, so if you want to write book, the Hebrew word would be sapar. But if you want to make it possessive, what do? You add the yad, which is sapar ya. Now it becomes possessive, my book. So when you're dealing with the confounding of languages, Shem kept the language of the past, and this is what the word Hebrew means. And this is why he said words translated do not have the same force in them. Why are so many Hebrew teachers not really pushing the cultural thought process of the Hebrew language? Are they in alliance with our oppressors? Do you not find it odd? How are you going to go back to your roots and not go back to the language that connected you to the root? How can you be teaching freedom yet embracing the language and culture of the same people that oppressed you or is still oppressing you?